feels like to believe, as do most of the atheists in the room, what it feels like to be Christian and to really believe it, way down here. But we also know what it's like to have that belief crumble when it's properly scrutinized. And I hope to do a little of that today. Thank you.
Thank you. And for me, it was losing faith was a long process of study, of self-examination, of thinking about it, and trying to comprehend how whether what any particular religion teaches, whether or not that matches up with what we know about the world and how the world works, and not just the world today, but history, how people work, and as an attorney, when I'm interviewing a client, one thing that the questions that I'm always looking to answer is, what are the facts? Not only what do we know, but also what can we show that we know? Because anyone can believe anything they want, but what really matters, to quote from A Few Good Men, it doesn't matter what I believe. What matters is what I can prove. And for me, that's what's important, is what are the facts? And for me, over the years, I just kept finding fact after fact that contradicted often what I was taught about religion growing up, and eventually it just chipped away until I found that I didn't believe any of it anymore.
Began really examining my beliefs and holes that existed in the faith that were never really explored were exposed, and that combined with some other things that I just observed led to me walking away from my faith. I don't like to say my faith crumbled or I lost my faith, because that has like a negative connotation. And for me, walking away from my faith and leaving it behind, growing out of it, was a very positive experience. It was painful at times because the people around me, and to a degree today, continue not to understand. But for me personally, I feel that I am a better person today than I ever was. I'm more active in my community and with my friends, because I don't believe that I can just say, I'll pray for you, and that fixes it. I feel like if I want to actually help someone, I have to do something. Like I said, I grew out of my faith, and I feel it's made me a better person, and I cherish the experiences I've been able to have, the friendships I've been able to create without the burden of religion getting into the way.
For me, one of the most, I'd say, infuriating things that I've heard is that atheism makes some sort of claim about knowledge of the universe in itself. In other words, the idea that atheists somehow have to know or understand everything about the universe to disbelieve that a God exists. And that is, to put it bluntly, a lie. You don't have to know anything to lack a belief in anything. And that's simply what atheism is. Many atheists that I know keep repeating over and over, atheism is simply a lack of belief.
People who still believe have this concept that, then you're not the person I thought you were, or we can't continue to have the relationship we did, because if you don't believe in God, then something about you has radically changed. And I would posit that a person who lacks belief, even if they used to believe, still has all the characteristics that they did. They still are a loving person, a kind person. They have all the things about them that drew you to them, just not faith.
So this is a mental image that I want you to try to keep in mind that'll probably come up multiple times this evening. I want you to picture a book that's titled The Atheist Bible, or An Atheist Bible, right? Leather, gold-leafed, the little ribbon bookmark, all that stuff, right? You open the front page, and it's book 1, chapter 1, verse 1, I lack a faith in a God. The rest of the pages are blank. That's the Atheist Bible. Anything else, the person is filling in separate from strictly being atheist. It's important to remember that atheism is not a monolith. I mean, we get grouped in with religions and part of religious discussions, and it is a religious orientation,
Yeah.
but it's not really a religion, right? We don't have teachings, we don't have priests, we have a bunch of people that have one general idea. I don't believe that there's a God, and then everything else they believe is individual and different. So because we're not a monolith, when an atheist does something bad, it's a lot easier to say,
Yes,
yeah,
they
they
were
were an atheist, but that's not why they killed those people, and whatever reason they did kill those people, I sure as heck disagree with them on that and think that's terrible.
Many of the times when I hear those kind of statements that you were making about what atheists are or are not, the single most common source of statements, the single most common source of those statements are Christian apologists and Christian preachers. They are saying things either that what they're saying is false. Pure and simple, which means either they know what they're saying is false or they don't. If they don't, they're being ignorant. If they know what they're saying is false, then they're lying.
You go through an entire history of suffering and strife and hardship and just unimaginable. The worst thing that can happen to human beings has happened. There's no torture you can imagine that hasn't befallen somebody. To have that stuff happen so we can appreciate how good God is sounds vain and cruel to me.
Yeah.
Other thoughts?
The thing is, once you drop the idea that there is a supernatural being out there watching us, you realize sometimes bad things happen. Earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, diseases, plague, cancer, starvation. And there are a lot of things that we can't do anything about, but there are a lot of things that we can. And hoping that some powerful being may at some point intervene to make things better at some point is really just wishful thinking. What really matters is what we can do here today while we are alive, living in the world.
The thing about, you have to experience the bad to experience the good, to me that is kind of the disturbing rings of an abusive, significant other. To me, oftentimes when people explain why God is the way He is, okay, it sounds that way to me.
Let me just ask it this way. What do you think is evil here in this world? How does evil happen?
Well, evil's a really subjective term.
It doesn't really exist. Things happen.
Yeah.
Some of them are great, some of them are terrible.
Okay.
So life just goes on.
Reality doesn't have a moral bent.
So
Because if there isn't that drive of what caused this, and the easy answer being thrown out of, well, God did it, there is no drive to find out.
So whenever you said, people come in same illness, some get better, some perish or don't recover, and these things happen. There hasn't been a ton of research done on it, but the studies that I've seen indicate that there's no real correlation between what religion a person is and how likely they are to recover, and there's no particular correlation between how much somebody is prayed over, or whether their doctor and their medical staff is religious, or their family's praying for them. Basically, there's no correlation between anything religious and who does and doesn't recover. So if there is no correlation, and you're saying, and you weren't saying there was, at least I didn't hear you say there was, you're just saying that there are these miraculous things that happen for some people, and that's all in God's hands and up to His plan. But if it's not correlated to religion, how can you tell the difference between God's will or random chance? What's the hallmark of this is a God miracle recovery versus this is within the realm of natural possibility, but yeah, this person's really lucky? Like, what tells you that this is miraculous and not mere?
I am going to look at the consequences and, whether it harms people, if it benefits me, if it benefits those I love. There's a lot of different factors. And so, and again, that comes back down to, do you believe in objective or subjective morality? And there's that question alone is its own debate. So, at the end of the day,
just for you, do you believe there's objective or is all morality subjective?
honestly, I am on the fence about that, and I haven't really made up my mind because there are valid arguments on each side. The idea of subjective morality is at times uncomfortable for me, because at the end of the day, then that says that the society and the culture you live in determines the morality. which can have uncomfortable, because you talk about, genital mutilation in some cultures is completely accepted and a fine practice, whereas our culture recoils at that. So I mean, it's complicated, it's messy, and there's no easy answer. For me personally, I prefer to look at, benefits, cause and effect, things like that.
So on the question of objective morality or subjective, again, there's a lot of room for disagreement, but I'm all about the mental images and illustrations tonight. The best example I ever heard is think of playing the game of chess, right? The rules of chess and the game of chess are subjective. There's nothing cosmic that defined what chess is. People just sat down and decided these are the rules, this is the game we like to play. But once you have that subjectively determined thing, chess, the best move in that game is objectively determinable. You can find out what is the best move in an objective sense within the subjective framework of the game. So morality, I believe, is determined subjectively by people and by society, but once you've got your morality determined, there are objective ways to go about achieving and preserving that morality the best.
But you wouldn't suggest, in chess, if you're working in your own best interest, you're also working to beat someone else.
Well, obviously, that's where the metaphor falls apart, because the real world has a lot of competing interests, not just two players, right? And morality is really, really, really complicated in practice, but in principle, it's not. In principle, you don't need God to get to morality. All you need is, I don't want these things to happen to me. I'm willing to give up my right to do these things to help ensure that other people won't do them to me. I don't want to be killed. I'm going to give up my right to kill other people so that nobody can also kill me. I'm going to agree with other people to collectively punish people who break that rule. And you don't need a belief in a supernatural or a God to say, I don't want these bad things to happen to me, and therefore I will agree along with everybody else to not do them either. And really almost all law and morality is just that principle extrapolated and expounded to very complex degrees, but that's all you need to get
I believe that all morality is subjective. It's something that we all need to decide on, something we all, in fact, do decide on. In fact, I believe that even those who make claim that there is some objective source of morality, whether it's a God or not, are simply projecting their own subjective decisions on something else. I mean, if slavery is wrong because I don't want to live in a society where slavery exists and I don't want to be a slave, and I think that slavery is just terrible, is that any different from me saying that slavery is wrong because I believe that some higher power said so? And if that's the case, then it's just the higher power's subjective decision on that issue. I think it's, like I said earlier, morality is something that everyone has to arrive at through, and it's something everyone does arrive at. Empathy, reason, personal experience.
Do you think it's more personal or as a culture?
I think if there's a social contract.
Yeah, and people who live in the same society tend to have same or similar values on many things, but there's also a lot of room for diversity. And if we're living with people, I think that there should be at least a baseline amount of things that we agree on, at least, if not personally agree on, at least are willing to abide by.
Well, that's how cultures are formed. I mean, we have America because people in Europe said, I don't agree with your morals, with your religion, so I'm going to peace out and make my own. And then you have two different cultures that arise in Britain and in America. And even today you have marked cultural differences, and they have different ideals and things like that. And while the lines between Britain and America are a lot thinner, but I mean the farther out you go, the more marked the differences become. And I think at the end of the day, all morality is kind of an evolving concept, because basically when you think about what the ideal cultural is, each society will have a different idea of what that looks like. And so it's really difficult to say there's clearly an objective morality, because wherever you go on the globe, it's different. And some of them even prize values that are reviled other places. So,
Reggie said ago.
Well, I don't think we were created. I think that life is the result of millions of years of biological evolution, which is natural forces acting on inanimate matter. And how did the universe begin? I don't know. But how did the Earth begin? Well, there's a lot of really good expert astrophysicists who have some really good ideas about the early days of the universe, how gravity caused particles to coalesce, and gravity allowed them to orbit, and they turn the planets. I mean, that's okay. Yeah, why not? That's what the scientific. I'm not a scientist. I mean, that's just what the experts who studied it say.
I mean, that's an impossibly complex question, even if any one of us up here was an expert on the topic, and I don't think any of the three of us are. No, I have a layman's understanding, but I'm not going to talk that one. But whoever wrote that question, the most simple answer is the E word, evolution. Change over time with selective pressure. The universe was created by physics, which created chemistry, which created life through a long series of changes over time against selective pressures. At least that is the best explanation we have. Now, one of the beauties of science is that new information means that the models change. So who knows, 100 years from now, the 100-year future versions of us could be having a different conversation where we understand a different changing driving force other than evolution that powers these things. But as of right now, that's the best explanation we have.
And an important distinction there is that the beginning of life and the process of evolution are two different things. Evolution is not an explanation of how life started. You're talking about abiogenesis there, or some other, spark.
Yeah.
Evolution is only the explanation of how things became progressively more complex to be the people and the animals that you see around you today. And